let's dive into the first question. Let's start with the silliest question possible, the most basic one. What is money? And what role do you think money plays in the world today?
Sure. Let's start with a little bit of history on how we can explore such a topic. Let's think about the past where transactions were valid only through a unit of transfer. I could transact with you if you gave me something, and we both needed the other person's good or service provided. So if I were to give you some wheat and I needed some corn in return, we could have done that transaction. However, if I wanted to buy clean water, that wasn't possible because you didn't have clean water to sell to me. So I would have to go to a third person, find someone who needed that wheat packet, get clean water from that in return, and then move that around. And in this scenario, we realized that over time that this wasn't feasible, as the increase in the number of goods and services created an extraordinary possibility of combinations that we needed to approach. And hence we realized that this barter system would no longer be possible. When that happened, somewhere during the Yuan dynasty in China in about 10th century, this concept of bills came around, or notes. And at that point in time, the government were the only control of these notes. And that's when the first time what was introduced was something called fiat money. And fiat money is simply saying the authority to transfer a unit of value from one person to another. So it's simply a signed note that says, oh, this note is worth some amount that can be associated to some sort of commodity or some sort of service. This could be, oh, I will be able to buy 1 bag of wheat with it, or I will be able to get some clean water delivered to me. And so money in its most basic form is a 3-part situation. It's a unit of value, like we discussed. So it has some intrinsic value associated with it, and it could be pegged to some sort of good or service. It's a unit of account. Unit of account simply being that it stores a particular transactional value. And then finally, it's a medium of exchange. A medium of exchange being simply that one person can use this fiat money to move from one good to another good, or from one service to another good, or from a service to another service. And the interesting idea about money and how sort of it plays a role in the economy is it's quite large, but we can dive into each of sort of the different components of it. One being durability. So let's explore what durability would do. Say if I had a bag of wheat and this was this money that we had in the barter system, over time this wheat would dissolve, become useless, and maybe even be consumed by me. So I would just lose out on this store of value. If we moved on to something else like commodities, maybe as gold or silver, those would become too heavy to carry at some point in time. So the durability of fiat money is quite interesting, and it's a good concept where this piece of paper might stick around much longer than most goods or services or most commodities that you can use as an exchange or a store of value. The other idea is divisibility. A fiat money, you can have smaller denominations of such a fiat money, versus if you have this bushel of wheat, or if you have a bag of wheat, how do I have half a bag of wheat? Then I need more bags. It's just not easy to divide it. If I have a gram of gold, I can't get half a gram of gold unless I go to a mint and actually get it divided. So divisibility was an interesting factor. Acceptability, since the Yuan dynasty, like we talked about in the 10th century, acceptability and approval became the next best concept, where if I went to you, you knew that this was issued by some central authority that paid the same amount of value when I went to the central authority and redeemed that bill. And so acceptability became another big factor. Another factor was a limited supply. So for instance, now, since fiat money is regulated by some sort of central authority, you know that there is a finite amount that is present in the economy. Versus in the past, if it were bushels of wheat, I could have just created some bushels of wheat and then used that sort of agricultural produce as my money. Or if it were gold, I could just go start mining gold, and people would not have sort of this identity that this is the right gold that is sort of accepted, or this is not the right gold. And that creates an issue with sort of this idea of fake money as well, because then you would just dilute the economy with the increase in the wealth or increase in the money supply that you were just producing. And lastly, it is about something that we can define as transactional value. So the transactional value of fiat money and how it affects the world is that you and I understand that this holds value, and you associate it with certain number of concepts, a certain number of goods, a certain number of services, and you can use this because you and I regard it as the same unit. And that's what the acceptability or the accountability point is. So those are sort of the 5 different concepts, and that's how it affects the role in the economy.